Duke and South Sudan's Khaman Maluach is one of my early favorites in the 2025 NBA draft. This is Floor and Ceiling, let's break him down. Khaman Maluach has a ton of things that you want from a big on both ends of the floor. The incoming Duke freshman is 7'2" with a 7'5" wingspan and a 9'8" standing reach, similar to former Blue Devil center Mark Williams. Maluach is also one of the youngest prospects in the 2025 draft, not turning 19 until next September. He only started playing basketball in 2019. Maluach spent the last 2 seasons in the Basketball Africa League in addition to developing with the NBA Academy. He also has Olympics and World Cup experience with the South Sudan national team. And finally, Maluach has pathways to success as a more quote-unquote traditional two-way big, but also, and perhaps more curiously, as a 7+ footer with expansive flashes. Khaman is in my preseason top 10, but I can understand some of the trepidation surrounding him until we finally see how he performs in the highest level of competition that he'll have played in so far. It's absolutely vital for me that a big knows how to do the basics of his position. On offense, that means screening and rolling, catching and finishing, rebounding of course, and if a center can play above the rim, that's even better. Maluach can do all of that. He's a pick and roll tool with how he's a lob threat, and he can also finish with some finesse on layups. Maluach can also generally be used around the basket, he can catch and finish in the dunker, and he'll benefit from playing alongside a bevy of guards who I trust at Duke. Maluach is still relatively green offensively, so I think it's important that he first gets set up with easy looks before trying to do too much. This will include rim running, which I love from Khaman. Maluach is 7'2", but his mobility astonishes me. The incoming Duke freshman gets up and down the floor really well with surprising speed. Khaman has an outstanding motor, which is evident with how he hustles on tape, but it comes across even stronger in person with how often he communicates with his teammates. You combine all of those things, and I think that the makings are there for Maluach to have a straightforward role on offense while we wait to see how the rest of his game develops. Maluach has said that rebounding is one of his strengths, and I agree. In last season's BAL, as a 17-year-old, Maluach averaged more than 14 total rebounds per game. But for the sake of brevity in this video, we'll showcase his offensive rebounding here. The Duke center makes multiple efforts, and he leverages his dimensions to create second plays. Maluach has a relatively quick second jump at 7'2" with a 9'8" standing reach. Plus, he'll keep getting stronger and more athletic, which is important to factor in as well. Maluach just turned 18 in September, so his combination of aggression, production, and potential is really appealing. One improvement area that ties into this, which we will get into, is how he needs to improve his touch shots on short range near the basket, but Maluach has good hands to secure rebounds and finish with dunks, which, speaking of, he's also a big-time threat for tip dunks and tip-ins. Diving into how Maluach can expand his offensive repertoire, that starts at the three-point line. Maluach has shot threes on OK volume before, so this is not new, but it's more so about consolidating whether this shot is worth buying into at the next level. In his 24 total BAL games, Maluach shot around 32% from 3 on 57 tracked attempts. That is encouraging. Plus, he made 71% of his free throws last year, which is fine for a big. Maluach is a willing spot-up shooter with some pick-and-pop potential, although I think teams will want him to get the basics down first before he starts taking triples. Still, when the shot is falling for the South Sudan center, it's really hard to stop or even contest at 7'2". In my evaluation, Maluach has gotten more fluid shooting and making threes over time, but he still needs to do more overall to convince. It's valid to wonder how dangerous Maluach's shooting can be if he's limited to a small volume of spot-up threes per game. You could argue defenses will take that, especially if Maluach's average from downtown stays in the low 30s. My main thing here is that the Duke Big's shot prep gets rushed and sloppier if he's moving into a shot or facing a really tight closeout. Maluach isn't really going to be taking movement threes at 7'2", but when he needs to take an extra second to organize himself, his three-pointer is affected. I broadly believe in Maluach's shooting upside, but I can understand why some teams might be or will be skeptical. For one, he needs to become more consistent from three since he's a streaky shooter, although again, he was 16 or 17 playing against grown men. Maluach can also work on being more fluid and more in rhythm in catch and shoots because I only truly feel comfortable with him making spot-ups. In the short term, this is possibly fine, but thinking big picture, improving his footwork and quickness with his release would get more out of Maluach's floor spacing. The other shot that Maluach shows is this turnaround 2, usually going towards the left baseline. The Duke center makes this shot with some consistency and he shows touch and arc with it. In the long run, I think it's fine to see Maluach as a big who might get face-up looks out of the blocks and the elbows. But we should also acknowledge he can't demand too many of these reps right now. Maluach cannot self-create too much or have the ball in his hands for a lot of dribbles or seconds. He also doesn't have many counters to turn to yet, so his shot selection gets iffier if or when his initial move gets cut off. Still, there is a foundation with his shot, and in my opinion, there is a base to work with. Looking ahead, I want to see the South Sudan prospect improve his touch on short-range shots near the basket. I think he misses a few too many bunnies right now, and he needs to be shooting a very high percentage at the rim. I buy his shot having upside, as I said earlier, but it is streaky. Maluach might be best suited to more of a basic role right now, perhaps maybe always, but there's certainly room for growth, and he's shown a lot of development and tools in his very young basketball career. Maluach has also shown some scarce flashes putting the ball on the floor, although I question how much these will translate up. Still, I could see him maybe doing some stuff out of handoffs or dribble handoffs, and eventually, if he gets these touches, out of the elbow. I really like when young prospects show creativity and variety in their game, so I appreciate this about Maluach a lot. There's a big chance that this ball handling and even this passing, as we're about to see, might not be in his NBA future at all, but I will be tracking it just in case. This also broadly applies to Maluach's passing, as I just brought up. He's not going to be a hub or anything of the sort, but I have seen signs of life in this department. If Maluach can make some passes out of the post, or even after he secures an offensive rebound, then that would be helpful to his overall game. Defensively, it's pretty straightforward for Khaman Maluach right now in terms of what he's good at, what he needs to get better at, and his NBA projection. Again, he has all the tools, but the biggest thing I want to see him reach is more consistency, and that will come especially in the pick and roll. Defending ball screens is absolutely key for a center, and Maluach is still very young, but this could already make a big difference in his draft stock and even in his playing time at Duke. Maluach can be too reactive, and he needs to take better angles. He has a tough time taking away both the pass and the finish from the guard, which is a tricky game to play, but for him, a necessary one. When Maluach is defending ball screens, his body shape, hand placement, verticality, and reaction time is off too often for my liking. Sometimes he can recover with his athleticism, but not always, and this could be more of an issue going forward, so let's see how he reacts against higher level competition. However, Maluach has a safe base as a defender, and he's incredibly coachable. I have faith that he'll improve to meet his potential on this end as a rim protector who can also check perimeter players here and there. It'll be a matter of reps and staying patient, but of course, that can be contextual for some teams in the NBA draft. Still, Maluach is 7'2", agile and fast. In his best moments so far, he can put a lid on the rim and smother attackers on the perimeter with his mobility and length. For now, he's too reactive, so he needs to learn to be more disciplined and stay down. The game as a whole needs to keep slowing down for Maluach, so make no mistake, he is still green, but he's also really exciting. I'm betting on Maluach's upside to start the season, but I'm open to him potentially needing more time in the oven. Still, to kick off the draft cycle, he'll be in my top 10.